in what has already been a historic election. Another twist in what has already been a historic election cycle. President Biden says he will end his re-election bid. In a letter just released, the president writes, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." Now, the president says that he will address the nation later this week. President Biden right now at his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. As you may recall, he contracted COVID last week. Another twist in what...
Hey everybody, another little update. It's Saturday. I've been waiting all day. I'm like, surely there's got to be more news. There's more news. Okay, so Alex Thompson and Hans Nichols, they work for a place called Axios. Check them out. But basically what they're saying is right now Biden's like full steam ahead, being very stubborn. And the First Lady is planning to go to the Olympics, so she's leaving soon, but she's got fundraisers on her schedule. So remember I talked about the Lemon Law campaign. They're still asking for money and donation and votes for somebody that they don't think necessarily can do the job. Because what happened is, if you scroll down to the bottom of their article, internally some Biden officials thought the end was near, and they said that even some of the campaign material that they are getting into their own inboxes is like, quote, North Korean government propaganda. They're trying to figure out a way to hold on, but I'm telling you guys, it feels like they know the end is near. They just don't know how it's going to end. So we'll keep following here from Wisconsin. Bye.
It's kind of like when your grandpa, you got to take the keys, and everybody, you got to take his keys, you got to take his keys, you got to, and he's fighting and everybody's so frustrated, and then you finally get the keys back, and then you just cry. Because this is somebody that you love. This is somebody that you care about. This is somebody who was there for you. This is somebody you wouldn't be here without him.
President Joe Biden has now officially dropped out of the race and has endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for president, with him saying in a statement addressing the nation, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. While it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." With him also saying he will address the nation later this week in more detail about his decision to drop out, and then endorsing Harris today, saying, "I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it is time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this."
There's a reason Joe Biden rarely takes questions from the press, because when he does, typically it turns out like this.
President Biden, will you be serving your full 4-year term or handing over power to Vice President Harris? All 4 years or handing over? I can't hear you. Could you approach?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Joe Biden, the same guy that said, "Give me any test you want, I could show you how qualified I am to be the next president," just dropped out of the presidential race and now is endorsing Kamala Harris. Now, what happens next? Now that I got your attention, the Bangladesh Supreme Court has now officially overturned the job quota ruling. It's been almost a week of violent protests all over Bangladesh. Peaceful student protesters and civilians have been murdered by the police force and orders from the government executed by the Jatra League. Now look at some of the stats. If you have no idea what I'm talking about in regards to the quota movement, please watch my previous videos. So 30% is what the students were fighting for. So the 30% of jobs that are high, well-paying for the government, social services, whatever, are relatives from the 1971 war. But because this policy was also backed by a lot of corruption, people taking advantage of system, and with tremendous amount of youth unemployment constantly growing in Bangladesh, this is what led to the civil unrest and civil war-like stuff happening on the streets. So now the new quota has been changed to now 5%. The overall 56% to now the 7% is a very huge difference. And remember, these students were advocating for merit-based performance. So working really hard, getting good grades. And listen, I'm gonna be biased, but Bangladeshi students are some of the most smartest geniuses on this earth. So yes, they deserve a shot. They deserve to make money and income to support their families, to get them out of poverty. Now, just because this is a win, the students did come out with a bunch of demands. And rightfully so, the people that did carry out these violent attacks should be charged. The Prime Minister has to apologize to the entire nation because she was calling all Bangladeshi citizens Razakars, which is one of the most derogatory terms someone can use. The resignation of the Home Minister, dismissal of Police Commissioner, yes, arrests and prosecutions of the police officers that did go out with the student killings, prohibition of partisan student politics on all student campuses, as it should because the Chhatra League was one of the ones invoking the violence. Schools and colleges need to be opened again because right now Bangladesh declared a 2-day public holiday, and a guarantee that anybody that was protesting on the streets does not face future repercussions. Now here are some of my final thoughts. This may be a win, but at what cost? The internet has now been down for 48 hours. Certain broadcasting channels have been blocked. The most important thing is people were murdered. People were martyrs. Journalists have been killed. The country of Bangladesh became a country in 1971 because of the war against Pakistan, where the Pakistani military invoked a genocide, killing over 10 million Bangladeshis. And one of the ways that Bangladesh became its own country was through student protests, through the professors, the students, the civilians that fought for this liberation. And it's really eerie that we see that history is repeating itself, that the abused have become the abusers, that violence has sparked out within its own people, where this country is a perfect example of people advocating for freedom, for justice, to even speak their own language, from a country that claimed them even though they were thousands of miles away. And in the past 4 years of the amount of things, the historical things that we have seen unfold in this world, from COVID, Black Lives Matter, Israel genociding Palestinians, to a civil war in Bangladesh on the streets to invoke some change. This is heavy stuff. And now the President of the United States dropping out. This is a lot. This may be the generation where the most craziest things has happened to us. And I can't say things are going to get better. But what we can do is do our own part. And I'm so proud and so happy for everyone that raised social awareness about the tiny little part of the world that I was born in. Now always, if there's any other updates, please comment below and stay safe.
You guys, Biden just obviously dropped out of the election. And I do think it's for the best, obviously, because I just don't think he's like mentally all there. But oh my god, I don't know why it's making me so sad for some reason. Like, I could literally sob about it because my grandpa's the same age as him. And I'm like, I can't imagine him getting like I don't know why it makes me feel like he got like bullied out of it. And I know that's not the case. Like, obviously he's not suited anymore to like run a country, or like I don't know if he ever really even was, but like it's making me so sad thinking about like an old man getting bullied and then stepping down. I don't know why. Like, I remember when I saw my grandpa last, he was like talking to me about it, and he was saying like my brain doesn't work the way it used to. Like he's like everything happens more slow. Why do old people make me so sad?
NBC News has learned President Biden will step aside as the presumptive Democratic nominee. He will suspend his bid for a second term, and instead he will pave the way for a different Democratic candidate to face former President Trump this November. I want to show you the letter that we are just getting seconds ago from the president, from his office, in which he says that it has been the greatest honor of his life to serve as his president. He goes on to say, while it has been my intention to seek re-election, he says, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term.
We begin this hour with major breaking news. President Joe Biden has just announced that he is dropping out of the 2024 presidential race. In a stunning letter that was just released moments ago by his campaign on X, formerly known as Twitter, Biden wrote, quote, that it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. He goes on to say that he will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about his decision.
If Joe Biden drops out of the presidential race, what Democrats would likely jump in? The first choice would be his Vice President Kamala Harris, but her polling numbers would likely raise concerns. California Governor Gavin Newsom's previous political activity struck up rumors that he was running a shadow campaign. He denies these rumors and says he's loyal to the Biden administration. A 2022 memo revealed Senator Bernie Sanders said he hadn't ruled out running for president in 2024. He has since stated he will be sitting out the race and endorsed President Joe Biden. Read more about potential candidates at Forbes.com.
15 minutes ago, I posted that Joe Biden was dropping out of the election. He is now officially endorsing Kamala Harris for president. My fellow Democrats have decided not to accept the nomination, focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president. It's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. Shout out to Mama, for real. But I can't, because that meme's been going around. The only thing I can think about is stiletto pumps in the gut. Every AKA you know is about to become the most annoying person in the world.
The Democrats have been turning on Joe Biden one by one. Even his ex-running mate President Obama voiced concerns, telling his allies Joe needs to seriously consider staying in the race. Former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi was allegedly working up a plan to have Biden reconsider running for president. More House Democrats called on Joe Biden to stand down in the lead, signing a joint message reading, "The most responsible and patriotic thing you can do in this moment is to step aside as our nominee."
To the lovely people of Wakanda, I know you will make the right choice. And as always, Wakanda forever. Paid for by Kamala Harris.